so good, man. You make it easy.
Okay.
I hold the football, you come kick it.
Perfect. I can do that with Star Wars all night.
You know what? I'm gonna leave my Royce has Star Wars opinions item on the show idea list, because we'll just come back to it someday.
Okay.
I have some more Star Wars opinions. Part 2. That'll be fun. I'm gonna find the intro in there somewhere. Listeners, welcome to Dat Fury Radio. Royce Diamond is back. We're gonna have a question in a second. We're referring to last week's episode where Royce shared Star Wars opinions, and he kept some in his pocket for next time. So we'll see you again with some Star Wars opinions. But I have a more musical question to get us going this week. And this is a question, I'm gonna tee it up for you a little bit. Welcome, Royce. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be podcasting at all if it wasn't for you. So, hey. But this is a question that Ian Shepherd, who's a mastering engineer and occasional podcaster on the Mastering Show, great podcast, discussed quite a while ago now. I think probably a year ago or more. But the question is about when an album gets remastered versus when an album gets remixed.
Oh, okay.
And I think the question came about around the time that the Replacements did the big Tim reissue, like box set or multi-disc set or whatever. And that is an album, I don't know if you know it, but it's kind of notoriously, the original mix was bad.
Okay.
And
but the album did well.
The album did well, but kind of crappy sounding. And like 30 years later, they finally officially released a fully like remixed and nice sounding version of the album.
Okay.
And we don't need to talk about that album specifically, but the question is like, when an album gets remastered, it feels like the same album to me and to a lot of people, I think. When an album gets remixed, that goes much deeper into like, what is this piece of art?
Yeah.
And it is really remixing a well-known album or a well-loved album changes it on a fundamental level, maybe for the better, or equal, just different, but like, it's very different typically than a remaster. And I was just curious as to, I don't have a specific question, but just like, what's your thoughts on remixing versus remastering? And like, what does that say about the mastering process and the mixing process?
I think they're two separate deliverables, right? So, someone's coming to you to remaster a record. They're saying that, hey, my mix is exactly what I want, but maybe I want it delivered to a different medium. Maybe I want it to be more warm or more, loud, or whatever it is that they desire, right? Mm-hmm. If you're saying remix, that's a reimagining of this music, right? So you're not going to have, you're going to get the stems, right? Or not the stems, but you're going to get the individual tracks, hopefully, and a bunch of faders. And you're going to have to start thinking about the way you want to tell this story. Now, depending on your situation, hopefully you're in a situation where you can be like, I want to take what I kind of emotionally felt from this story, and now I want to do some other things, but I'm not expecting it to sound any way, shape, form, or fashion like the original mixes. Like, that's impossible. I'm a different person. Even if I was the same person, it's a different day. My ears are different. The room's different. My vibe's different. You're not getting that mix, right? Like, Thriller sounds like Thriller because they did it on that day, period. If they had done it a day later or a day earlier, it'd be a totally different record, no matter what. So that's a different, in my opinion, that would be a different way of doing it, which would be a really fun and cool challenge. But yeah, I mean, I can see there have been so many records that I've heard that have been remastered, and I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I don't hear anything different. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? But I don't hear anything different. But that's not the point of remastering a record. Mastering is a tool that's used to affix audio to a medium. That's not, I mean, you can do creative stuff along the way. That's not the purpose of it. You know what I'm saying? The purpose is, can it go on a 2-inch tape? Can it go on an ADAC? Can it go on a CD? Can it go on vinyl? That's what mastering is about. And you can do that in a methodical way, or you can do it in a musical way. But that's the purpose of it, right? It's not to change the overall vibe of the record, which remixing is. It's like, here you go, do some different shit. That's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, I agree completely. And like, so both mixing and mastering processes are a combination of artistic and technical, right? Mastering leaning more technical about that delivery format, whatever it is. Mixing leaning more artistic and creative, but obviously you have technical factors you got to consider as far as headroom and whatever mix system you're using, digital or analog, and
or how you going to get it out of this box you did it in. Yeah.
There you go. And so I'm wondering, see what you think of this kind of metaphor for people who haven't maybe done audio production before. I'm thinking of the mix, the recording and the mix as kind of like the painting, right? And I'm thinking of the master as kind of like the picture frame that's around it. And you can make, if you go back, if you want a different frame, bigger, smaller, gold, black,
yeah,
no frame at all, you're not changing the painting.
Right.
But if you go back and remix, it's almost like you're changing the painting in a way.
Yeah, you're I would imagine you're doing it because you're hoping for a different product, right? Like you just want to take this stuff that you've once, I think we all kind of do it as creatives, right? I've got songs that I've written, maybe I perform them to certain arrangements, or I've written them a certain way and I want to kind of like reimagine them because I'm in a different mood, or I don't like the way that sounds or something like that. And some people are in this exotic space where they can be like, hey, that hit record I made? Let's just redo it, like, which is really cool. You know what I mean? And they're genuinely interested to see a different interpretation of, this music that they made, however long ago. So yeah, I think it's I think, where it would become complicated is, how do you package up and sell it to somebody and have them clearly understand? And remixing, remastering means nothing to, hell, most engineers struggle with the difference between when do I stop this mix and then somebody else masters it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so you're asking people who have no technical understanding of it to experience something different. And if they hear it is drastically different because they don't have a technical understanding and there's not been communicated in a way that they can go with you on the journey, it might feel like a ripoff. Because you're like, yeah, this sounds like the same record I heard. I already paid $10 for this. You know what I mean? Hopefully,
mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, so I've got 3 different thoughts I've got to try and keep track of and say them all if I can. But like, so for anyone, we're way deep in it now, but for anyone who doesn't know, and Royce, you can comment, I would say mixing is generally the process where we're taking individual recorded sounds like a kick drum, a vocal, a guitar, a keyboard, different sounds like that. And we're combining them, doing different effects, working on their EQ, their loudness level, their panning left to right in our headphones.
And their relationships to one another.
Definitely. And we're arriving at a stereo mix.
Yeah.
A stereo file,
yeah.
which is digital. It could be on analog tape or something, but we've got 2 channels of audio. We're taking, anywhere from 4 to hundreds of individual sounds.
Yeah.
And getting them down, in general, 99% of the time, to left and right. Mastering, we're starting with that left and right. And there are exceptions. I'm trying to give the simplest possible case here, right?
Yeah.
We're starting with that left and right. And we're doing 2 things. We're preparing it for distribution, and that's kind of the technical piece of like whatever format definitions and specs we have to hit. And we're doing potentially some artistic enhancements. If the mix is a little thin, maybe we're adding some bass, maybe there's compression, maybe there's limiting, maybe there's saturation, maybe there's advanced stuff we're doing with the stereo field,
and maybe we're in a different room so we can hear something that they didn't hear in the previous room. We've never heard it before, so we've got a different vibe, from it. So those kinds of things too.
Definitely. So that's a simplified version of what these 2 processes are. And there is a lot of gray area, and it's becoming more gray over time with stem mastering and people mixing, whether they're mixing themselves or mix engineers doing more processing on the stereo parent bus. So there is a lot of gray area, but in the simplified version, that's kind of what the definitions could be. So that was one thought. An example of remastering done exceptionally well, in my opinion, is the Prince stuff. The expanded Prince editions that the estate has done sound so incredible. It's very faithful to the original mixes and masters and everything. But I've A/B'd them, and I swear I prefer the remasters. They sound
man. Okay.
Good.
Okay.
So good. There's just, they're 2% more definition, more clarity.
Is it the whole catalog or what?
Everything that's been done, like Purple Rain, Sign of the Times, the albums that have gotten the big like reissue expanded with all the vault tracks and stuff. That's the stuff I'm talking about.
Okay.
And it sounds incredible. I've A/B'd it against my CDs, against my vinyl rips.
Oh my God.
My full quality vinyl rips. I like the remasters. They're so good.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm doing Quincy Jones this year.
Okay.
And that's a feat because he did a lot of music. You know what I mean?
So much stuff.
So
you need 2 years, bud.
I was gonna say Prince has to be my 2027.
Okay. And my third thought, I can't believe I remembered them all, but my third thought, and this is about reMIXing. Hi, everybody. Howie from the editing room cutting in to let you know that for the next minute and 20 seconds, I am going to mistitle Pearl Jam's debut record 10. I'm going to call it Versus, which is their second record. And when I get to talking about their second record, I will realize my mistake and correct it. But for the next minute 20, when I say Versus, I mean 10. Thanks. And my third thought, I can't believe I remembered them all, but my third thought, and this is about reMIXing. So a while ago, maybe 10 years ago now, I don't remember, but Pearl Jam remixed their debut Versus. And that the original mix of Versus, and we all know the radio hits like Jeremy and Alive and stuff like that. But that album was done like right at that pre-Nirvana Nevermind transition, and it really it's an 80s mix. The snare is very reverby. The guitar, the mix as a whole is a little bit thin and roomy. And that's the mix we know and maybe love or maybe are sick of, from the radio and the overplaying of some of those songs. But they went back and they remixed it to sound much more like their later records. The remix versus sounds a lot like their second record. Have I been getting these album titles wrong? All of this, I gotta check for a second. I've been misspeaking this whole time. I've been talking about 10. 10 is the debut that got remixed.
Okay.
Versus my personal favorite Pearl Jam album, the second album. Okay. 10 has Jeremy and Alive and all that stuff. So they remixed 10 to sound like the rest of their discography. And
when did they do that?
I'm guessing 10 years ago, maybe. It's been a while.
Okay.
But that is still 20 years after the album came out. And I don't really dig it, man. While it's the technically superior mix and much more to my taste in general, and while I have heard the original 10 mixes like a billion times, that's just what that album is to me.
I feel you. Yeah, I feel you.
For all its flaws, like, it's iconic. It is what it is, and the remix is good, but I never reach for it. If I'm gonna play 10, which is rare, I play the original.
Well, man, it's like I was saying earlier. Like, you're a musician. How many times have you recorded something, whether it was a lyric or a musical phrase or something like that, under not the best audio quality, but that's the take. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it's something about the moment, and that's what I was saying about Thriller. Like, if they had mixed it a day later or whatever, it would have been different because everybody would have had different experiences. So, I mean, that's the struggle creatively, and they may have gotten something different out of it because they wanted it in their trunk a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But that original music was mixed, and it was mixed because of the frequencies that it was given. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what they were thinking of, and that was their time. And, everything borrows from what came before it. So when you're using something that came before it to make something in the future, that's sampling, right? You're basically taking a bit of yourself and you're trying to bring it forward. So it's going to feel different. I don't know. It's not necessarily bad, but I understand what you mean by you connected with it at that particular point in time.
Yeah, and the remix really like changed the identity of the record. It's a different record.
Yeah.
Just based on the mix. And that's a really drastic example of how a mix can change something. But I wouldn't be a good Quincy Jones podcaster if I didn't mention it at this point that Billie Jean was famously mixed like 90 times. And the one you hear on the record was mix number 2.
Hey, when I was in LA, their thing was think long, think wrong, right? You don't go back and touch it again. It is what it is. You need to take this new energy that you got from that previous thing and bring it to the next thing. Stop trying to make the old stuff new. Like, you captured it.
I didn't understand at first, but it's like thinking long is thinking wrong.
Yeah.
Don't think long. First thought, best thought.
First thought, best thought.
Yeah.
You had that, emotion, which, made itself a thought in that first moment. And then you started doubting it. Why? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I generally agree with that. Sometimes I think it's good to go back, to let some time pass and like try and have a fresh first thought that isn't really the first thought, but like a week has gone by, but like tweaking forever is never a good idea. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Like, as a songwriter, I for sure hear what you're saying. I think as a mixing engineer, like, you hear what's coming out of those speakers, assuming you're in a decent room or you at least understand your room. You know what you like and don't like. That's you. That's your fingerprint. Put your fingerprint on it and don't question it. If you later feel differently, that's fine too, right? But just do it, set it, move on. Don't think about it. Once you start doing that, like you don't see a saxophone player out there like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But engineers find themselves in that position, usually, especially now, because there's not someone standing over you, right? But no, man, just get it done. If you don't like it, it's all digital. Just do it again. Like when I first started mixing records, I'd mix songs like 20 times, man, every song. But if you think about that, for every one song that I got 20 songs better. You know what I mean? And then I found the one that I liked and the one that my client wanted, and I was able to present them with different flavors until I got to the point where it's like, okay, I kind of only need to get to like 2 or 3. Maybe there's this one good version and then these 2 other flares of things that might be interesting, and then just present that to people. So I don't know. That's 20 years of turning knobs, but that's kind of how I approach it. And I think people enjoy it.
Yeah, I've really learned to, and this is actually an interesting difference between like you as a pro and your clients and me as a DIY and not a pro. But like I've really learned to build time I've found ways to use time to my advantage, right? Because what I don't have is 8 hours in a row to work on something.
I hear you. Yeah.
But what I do have is the ability to, it's free for me to listen to something for a week and then have my list of changes I want to make.
Oh, I hear you.
So I can afford to sleep on it as many nights as I want, and yeah, that can become a problem at some point, but a couple nights can be really good and give that perspective that you can't get in the middle of a session. So I've really structured my music making to take advantage of those short blocks of time, and like having 90 minutes to track something, and then or to do a mix, and then like 3 days to listen to it before I commit to any revision, or like I have my list of revisions, and I've been to the car, I've been to the little boombox, I've been to the big system upstairs, right, and listened on all those things. I could do that with every song if I want to. So I've found ways to use time in a different way to my advantage. I feel like that you don't have when you're paying for a session on a day, right?
Yeah, because there are a couple things that happen. So like, that vocals jumping out, that kick drum's hitting too hard, or it's too much bass is happening with the client sitting there. And the longer it's happening, the less inspired they're going to feel. You know what I mean? And I want to I'm trying to convey their emotion. So I've got to fix those things immediately, right? Like I'm not dealing with a kick drum that does that. Boom. What is my solution? What are the different tools that I use to do that? It's done. And now they never hear that ever again. That happened over, 3 well, probably maybe like 15 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've got at least a balance that they can sit in the room and kind of enjoy the music that they're listening to, because that's the other piece of it, is like it's got to be an experience. Like, just like an artist stands up on stage, like I'm kind of giving a show too, right? Like, why do I want to sit here and listen to you tune this fucking snare? Like, that's not fun. I don't want to hear that, right? Especially if I'm a vocalist or something like that. I want to come in and kind of do my thing. So, yeah, I don't have those luxuries in those kinds of situations. And the other thing is, because I've gotten to the point where I just can't hear that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it drives me crazy if that thing is not fixed right now. And if it's not, I'm never going to want to work on this song again, because all I'm going to think about is how loud that fucking snare is, right? Like, and why I can't do this thing or whatever. But that's kind of fun for me, right? Like, figuring that stuff out.
Yeah, I love that idea of you as a performer when you're at the desk performing for the artist, and that act of theater that they bought a ticket to. I never thought about that way. That's amazing. And to be super clear, like, I'm not saying my process is better. I'm saying I've found ways to make the best of a sub-pro situation. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, and I'm not saying mine is better. I'm just saying our circumstances are different.
Definitely.
And it really just matters what the end product is, right? So I don't think, there's obviously there are clear wrong ways to do things,
Sure.
but if you're getting the results you want, I think that's what it is. But yeah, for me, and maybe that just comes from being on stage all the time. But I'm thinking, like, if I'm paying my money,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to sit here and listen to, something that doesn't feel good for too long. I can understand that things happen and there's a process, but I don't want to hear that crap, man. Like, I want to sound better than that. Make me sound like the radio.
Yeah. I love that. And that makes me think of my one pro mastering experience, which is a long time ago now. It was with probably the most famous mastering engineer in Omaha. And I learned so much. He let me sit in on the session. It was 2 days. It was a double LP. And I learned so much on the session, but he was not performing at all for me. It was awkward, dude. And he barely talked, and I was just kind of following him around, sitting on the couch in the back and making notes and trying to understand what he was doing. And I did learn so much, but he was not putting on a show.
Oh man, like, part of it is teaching, I don't want to say taste, but teaching the things that make my taste, right? And saying, here's what I'm hearing, here's what I did to combat that, and here's the difference. Which one do you like best? You know what I'm saying? Because it's your record, right? And I also think, like, everything that I have in front of me. So once everything's captured, I don't care how it gets to me. Once it's captured, like, that's the record. If we go and start trying to sterilize those things, that's when things just fall flat. You know what I mean? And the best thing that I've found in my career to illustrate that to people are like those first Wu-Tang records. Those records sound awful by any means that you think about how stereo fields work. They just do not sound great. But that's what makes them great, because it fits the narrative and the story and the vibe and all of that. If somebody had gone in and been like, well, I'm going to take that kick drum and I'm going to do this thing. And it's like you said, it's a completely different record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I always try to come at it like that. Like it's my job to help you produce what you're doing, very specifically in a community like this. So like you said, I don't have 8 hours a day to study my lyrics and my guitar and this song that I wrote, right? I need a little help when I get in here. So, you've been doing this for 20 years. What pointers do you have? What can I do? Sometimes it's just how you stand in front of the microphones, like really simple things. But if people don't know, like we could be making Thriller right now. You know what I'm saying? And not even know it. So let's all give our best. So anyway, that's my thought. And then all these things are just tools, man. They're just tools. They're not rules. They're tools, right?
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect place to leave the listeners for this week. Don't go anywhere, Royce. But listeners, we'll let you go and talk to you next week on Dat Fury Radio. Oh, that was great. That was great.
Okay.
Oh man, I can't believe I messed up those Pearl Jam titles.
Oh, and I don't know Pearl Jam's music enough to have caught it. So.
Oh, if you want a Pearl Jam record to listen to, I would say Versus. It's a real good record.